This is a true account of what happened to me, my brother, and my best mate in 1993. It's coming through the wall. This started on a Friday night in 1993 in my hometown, Leicester, UK. To bring a bit of extra cash into the house, my mother and her best friend Vicky started working at the local nightclub just up the road until quite late, and the babysitting duties fell to my father. There were 4 of us kids. Lee, my best mate, a bit older than me, his sister Carly, who was my age, around 12, and my little brother Darren, who was about 9. As Carly and I were the same age, when it came to sleeping arrangements, it made sense that out of the 3 bedrooms, Carly had the smallest to herself, and us 3 lads bunked down in one of the bigger bedrooms. We'd do this every week, and it was always a good laugh, and something we always looked forward to. Our house was a semi-detached on a nice suburban street, and our neighbours were all okay to get along with, apart from one. He was called Phil and lived in a house with the red door immediately to our left. Phil was a big bloke, and apparently was an accountant. He was very quiet, kept himself to himself, and we would barely hear a peep out of him. He was about 6'3" tall, 19 to 20 stone, and had long brown beard and long hair down to his shoulders. He had the look of a Viking, which we soon found out was more than by accident. His main hobby was participating in battle reenactments. We didn't think much of it, and just thought everybody needs a hobby of some sort, and it was harmless. Even if him carrying real 6-foot-long spears, body armour, and long swords from his white Ford Mondeo every week was quite a spectacle to behold. So with Lee and Carly sleeping at ours over a period of about a year, everything was fine. We'd say goodnight to Carly at about 11, and then proceed to dick about in our room until we were told off, as young lads quite often do. We'd eventually fall asleep on the floor with our quilts, kind of camping out. This particular night, I had Darren on my right, with the window above and to the back of our heads. Lee was more or less perpendicular to our feet. It was about 3 a.m. when it all started. I awoke to see Darren and Lee fast asleep, but from behind the adjoining wall, coming from Phil's house next door, I heard a soft scraping sound. It started at the very top, where the wall meets the ceiling. It sounded like someone very tall was stabbing a sharp implement into the plaster, and then an arc proceeding to scrape all the way down to the skirting board at the floor. You could sort of follow the movement with your eyes as this thing was scraping away. As it got to the floor and stopped, I heard the spike retract from the wall, only for it to be banged into the wall again high up and scrape all the way down in an arc to make the floor again. I lay there in the dark, looking over a sleeping Darren, staring intently at the wall, wondering what the hell it could be, and not wanting to wake and frighten my little brother. Once again, this spike carved its way down to the floor. Each time sounded like it was taking more and more brick and mortar with it, chipping away at the 2 foot that separated me from it. Where previously it had started with a small bang at the top of the wall, that was now replaced with a very loud bang, and an even more powerful scrape arcing its way down to the floor. It also increased in speed as it was repeated. The last one bolted me straight upright with a massive bang, and then scraped so intense it felt like it would pierce the wallpaper in my room and I come face to face with whatever was making that noise. But it stopped, or at least the scraping stopped. I lay there on my back, listening for anything that would give us a clue as to what it was, but all I could hear was my heartbeat pounding in my head and my own heavy breathing. Both Darren and Lee were still both dead to the world, and I wondered how I was going to explain what I'd heard to everybody in the morning. I was just about to drift off again when I heard the most unimaginable scream. This bolted me and Darren both upright and wide awake. It came from exactly the same place as the scraping had 20 minutes earlier. The only way I can help to describe it is likening it to a scene in the film Trainspotting, where the character Alison finds a baby dead in its cot. Scream in that film was very close to what we heard. But the jarring, realistic, guttural quality of the one we were both hearing will never be replicated fully. It truly sounded as if it had arisen from the depths of hell. We didn't move, we just stared at each other. Darren then began to try and kick Lee awake, and I joined in. We tried again and again to wake him up, literally kicking him in his head. We got nothing. It was as if he was dead. The screaming subsided somewhat, but it was still there in the background, and the scraping had come back, getting more and more intense every time. At this point, the scraping sounded like it was finding more purchase with every stab, And Darren didn't take his eyes from where the sound was coming from and said in a very calm and cold voice, "It's coming through the wall." Now, on top of that, the smashing started. The first plate to hit the wall honestly rocked the entire room and made us cover our ears. It sounded as if all of his dishes and plates and bowls and pans were all being launched at the wall, one after the other. But the noise it produced was somehow tenfold of what it should have been. This started and carried on through the wailing, the screaming and the scraping. And we thought he was somehow having one almighty argument with someone, even though we both knew that he was a bachelor and lived totally alone. We were still trying to kick Lee awake with no results. It was at this time Darren decided to look out of the window to see if he could see anything. The first thing he noticed was that Phil's white Ford Mondeo wasn't in the driveway. Now this was getting very, very strange. Darren tried to crane his neck a little by hanging outside of the window, but he couldn't see a light on in the adjoining bedroom where others was coming from. All in all, the house looked totally empty, which would fit, seeing as his battle reenactments were usually at the weekend, and he would return late on Sunday and unpack his car. During this time, it didn't occur to us to get my dad, and I still don't know how Carly hadn't heard anything. It was now about 3:45 in the morning, and Lee still hadn't awoke, showing no signs of waking at all, even with the pushes and nudges, and a few slaps if I'm honest. This disturbing occurrence had by now built into a crescendo of pure noise, and we just sat there terrified waiting for it to stop. Which it did, completely, at exactly the same time as the first morning birds began to sing. Darren and I looked at each other in complete amazement. On that cue, Lee lifted his head up and, still half asleep, touched his lip and asked why it was so swollen. We kept an eye out for Phil over the remaining week, and usually, exactly as usual, he returned, unpacked his car, entered his house and shut his front door. We thought nothing of it after that until after about a month when it happened again, near enough exactly the same. This time we got my mother up out of bed. It was off that night. Vicky was working, so they still slept at ours. This time I vividly remember how my mum stood in our bedroom doorway, leaning on the frame in her nightgown, just staring at the floor with a worried look on her face, listening to the horrific noises that were emanating from next door. Needless to say, Darren and I felt not quite vindicated, because now she actually believed us. She called the police, who arrived shortly afterwards, and we all gathered outside to see what would happen. Again, there was no car in the drive, and all the lights were off. The police forced entry into the property, after my mother had basically begged them to. We could see the police torches from outside in the room that we had pointed out to be where the disturbance was coming from. They came back to us after a short while and said other than it being a little messy with paperwork everywhere, nothing was out of place and the house was empty. We asked if there was any spears or spikes or damage to the walls. They said absolutely not. After paying council contractor to board up the little window the police had broken, we went back inside for a brew. We never heard of it again, and it's something we'll never forget, and we never looked at Phil in quite the same way. Yeah, that was a really weird night. It's me and my brother still talk about that now. 25 years later. It's that scream. It was absolutely horrific. I don't think I'll ever hear anything like that ever again in my life. So yeah, that was all true. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again in the next video.